Meet PitchDB, the ultimate platform for speakers looking to make their mark on podcasts, conferences, and media outlets. PitchDB provides access to over 3 million platforms, ensuring you find the perfect avenue for your message. With AI integrations, your bios and pitches are tailored uniquely to each opportunity, giving you the edge you need. Join now at pitchdb.com.
Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. This is Anika Jackson with Your Brand Amplified, and I'm super thrilled to be here today with Tami Jaffe. Tami, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Anika, for having me here. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So you are a breakout growth expert, and I'd love for you to share your story because I think this is something a lot of my audience struggles with, how to transition from corporate to entrepreneurship. And what does that look like? You know, what are our first steps and what do we do? And then how do we grow the dang thing? So I'd love for you to unweave a little bit about your background and how you sleep and then how you help people.
Absolutely. So many great questions all in one.
So excited.
Yes, lots there. I mean, we could spend days, but to give you the short version of my story. So I call myself a recovering CPA. I was in corporate for 20 plus years and worked my way up in leadership roles and got to a point where I felt like I wanted something different. I wanted something more. You know, I loved what I did, but I didn't love the politics and some of the things happening in the corporate world and working for a Fortune 100 company. And I decided to start working with a coach, help me figure that out. I started working with an energy healer. And it was through the combination of those things that I realized I had always called myself a mentor manager. That's when people would ask me what my management style was, like, I'm a mentor manager. And coaching was the perfect next step for me to just step into coaching and helping people and figuring out their careers. And I was passionate about leadership. And so I started off as a career and leadership coach. And the more I started getting into my business, and once I left corporate, I had more and more people start coming to me saying, how did you do it? How did you go from being a VP in a Fortune 100 company to starting your own business? And my coach finally said to me, she's like, would you just go teach these people how to do it? And that's kind of what my short version of the story is, and getting there and where I'm now.
That's so beautiful. It's funny when we feel those nudges that have been there all along, right? That are trying to get us to take that leap.
Yes.
And that moment that propels us to take the leap.
Yeah, absolutely. We all have those things that are pushing us, pulling us, and giving us those signs, right? And sometimes we try to ignore the signs and go do something else or just pretend like it's not happening. And then you get bigger and bigger signs that it's time to make a change.
Yeah. And you talked about working with an energy healer and also with a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that you incorporate energy healing perhaps into some of your strategies. So I'd love to hear how each piece of that helped you make the leap and realize what your true calling was. And then how do you infuse energy healing? What does that look like for your clients?
Yeah, I had started working with an energy healer because I was going through some physical pain myself, and a true believer that our body is just there giving us signs that something's wrong, something needs to change. And I started working with this energy healer who was helping me figure out where some of my frustration was coming from. I was having gallbladder issues, which relates to frustration, and stemming from some things that had happened to me in my corporate life. And being able to release that, being able to let go, being able to realize that I don't have to hold it all in, and being able to create a new pattern for myself. Like, a lot of times we get stuck in what I call patterns of, you know, the same thing seems to keep happening over and over again. And you wonder why, like, why do I keep dating the guy who's horrible? Why do I keep, not getting the money? Why do I keep, like, all of these different things that different people go through? You have a pattern that keeps repeating for you.
Yes.
And to be able to let go of that, to be able to release it so that you can create a new pattern in your life is what I believe true energy healing is about. Mm-hmm. And I had to heal myself and work with people who did. And it was in doing that I realized I didn't want to just coach. I wanted to also be able to help people from the energy and the mindset side of things to be able to move through these difficult situations, to give them a new experience, give them a new future for their life that isn't dependent on that pattern that they've created for themselves.
I appreciate you being so vulnerable and sharing that, because it's definitely something that I see manifest in myself as well. The patterns that you're talking about, and how sometimes it just takes one moment to go, oh, that's my pattern. And as soon as you recognize it, you can change it, whether you're actively changing it or subconsciously changing it, right? And then the other aspect of listening to our bodies. And quite honestly, right now, I'm in a phase where I'm having to go, oh gosh, all these things are happening. I need to listen to my body and take a step back. And if that means that I let go of some of the things that I'm doing right now, that has to be okay, because your health has to come first. And that health is manifestation of all of the other things that are going on. So I really, really appreciate your approach, how you use that for yourself, and then how you incorporate that for the work you do now.
Yeah, you're so right. Like, we have to listen. And that's what happens is, we're not listening. And so it gets worse and worse and worse. And that's when, it manifests into a disease. And there's a reason it's called, dis-ease, because that's where our body is feeling. We're feeling dis-ease with something, and it starts to grow. And if we can't help ourselves in figuring out where that's coming from, how do we heal that and be able to move past that, then we just get stuck and it gets worse.
Yeah. So how did things change when you made that transition? It sounds like you had a lot of people coming to you immediately, but were there any rough spots that you hit that you had to navigate through?
Oh, absolutely. It is entrepreneurship, right? It is definitely the roller coaster every single day, as people say in entrepreneurship. I mean, there's been ups and downs all throughout, but I think the commonality is like understanding that I know I'm a resilient person and I'm going to work through it, whatever it is. And so as I got started in my business, I spent my first year going through a coaching certification while I was still working full-time in corporate and juggling, family and 2 little kids at home and all of that at the same time. And it wasn't easy, but I also figured out how to balance things. And that taught me a lot about time management. And when I decided to finally leave my corporate job and jump into entrepreneurship, there were definitely some ups and downs. One of my first lessons that I learned is when I left corporate, I was on phone calls 8 to 10 hours every single day in corporate. And when I left, I ended up taking a trip to Bali for a retreat that I was doing energy healing for women there, and got there and was just so relaxed and so rejuvenated. And I came back and I'm, working on the business and working behind the computer and doing things. And I realized one day that I wasn't getting a lot of people scheduling, right? So I wasn't getting strategy calls. I wasn't pulling people in. And I stopped and I'm like, because I don't want to be on phone calls every day. And so I had this realization when you transition from one thing to another, there are certain things that you want to leave behind, certain things that you don't want to have to do anymore. And I realized I had such control over my schedule now that I didn't want someone else controlling it. So I was literally pushing people away from being able to schedule with me because I had this resistance to wanting to have time on my calendar.
Wow.
And so working through, that's just a little example, right? Of okay, where am I blocking myself?
Yeah.
And this happens throughout the journey, right? For all of us. There are times when it's like, okay, where do I need to shift something? What am I doing to push people away? And it's funny, I was literally just before we got on this podcast interview speaking at an event. And before I jumped out for my speaking spot, they informed me that the event had started the day before. And they're like, we had a couple sessions where we didn't have anyone show up as attendees. And I said, well, that's what I call reverse manifestation. Because she said, the one person got sick and she wasn't able to attend. And I said, she manifested no one showing up because she wasn't able to be there. She didn't want people to be there. And so in life, there are so many times when I found myself if I'm not feeling good or something's happening, I know I need to reschedule. I have gotten to the point now that I don't even bother reaching out to the person because I know they're going to cancel or reschedule before I reach out to them. Because we are that powerful. Like if we want something or don't want something, we can make it happen. And so I call it reverse manifestation because sometimes it's to the negative when we're really trying to create something positive. And so I wanted to share that because I think it's a different take on manifestation that some people don't even realize. You're like, I want, to make the million. I want to do this. I want to, have more clients. I want to have more business. But there's another part of you saying, I don't feel like showing up today. I don't want to go get ready. I'm not feeling great. I have a conflict with my kids or some, like all of these things that are running through your head. And the universe is hearing that going, you don't really want this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
so we think we want it, but subconsciously we know that we really at that time. Yeah. We're not
absolutely.
ready for it. Yeah.
And so you got to figure out, where is that coming from? How do you get through that? What do you really, really want that your subconscious is going to agree to help you move forward? Or how do you change that belief to get to that point?
Yeah. It's really powerful. And is this a lot of what you talk about in your book, which I see behind you for those who are watching?
Yeah. So my book is called You Already Made the Decision. You're Just Not Happy with It. And it is a guide on how to make better decisions or to live with the ones you've made. And so in the book, you will find tips and tools on how to make quick decisions and move through life faster. And then where we spend a big chunk of the time in the book is on how to make those life transitions, those bigger decisions that sometimes linger for months and years sometimes because you don't know how to make the change. You don't know how to step into it. And so I talk about a formula in my book that I call the clarity trifecta. And the clarity trifecta is, what do you need to understand in order to move through these big transitions? And so if you can, picture a circle with a triangle around it, the circle in the middle is your clarity. And you have to have clarity in order to move forward. So when you want to make a change, you want to leave a job, you want to get out of a relationship, you want to get into a relationship, you want to do something different than what you're doing today, you typically have just a little bit of clarity of what that is. Like you have an inkling you want to do something different. You don't know how to do it. You don't know what to do. You don't know the steps to make it happen. And so that clarity bubble in the middle is really small. And as you get those questions answered, that clarity bubble will expand and start to grow. And it pushes out on the three sides of the triangle, which are your confidence, your courage, and your commitment. And so everybody says it starts with commitment, but it really starts with clarity. And your commitment will grow as you get more clarity. Your confidence, your faith and belief in yourself will grow as you start to see what's possible, as you start to see how you could do it, who can help you with it, how others have done it before you. And your courage will start to grow with that clarity because now you know, okay, this is the next step I need to take. You don't have to have it all figured out.
Yeah.
You just need to know the next few steps. And then what do you do next? And what do you do next? And then you start to see the momentum as you take those steps. And that's when it really starts to grow.
I love how you frame that. And I think that's where a lot of people get really overwhelmed, is thinking that you have to make a big leap and a big adjustment at once. But if you make those incremental changes, right, then that is a way to ease yourself into the next phase of your life, the next job, the next journey if you're going into entrepreneurship and you've been in corporate.
Yeah. I saw this visual when I was driving up into the mountains. We live in North Carolina, and we were driving up to Asheville last summer, and there was this like fog over the mountains, and we could, just see a little bit of road in front of us, but you could look up and see the top of the mountain. And that's what it's kind of like when you are trying to make a transition. You have an idea of what that top of the mountain is for you. You know where you want to get to, but there's this fog over all of the steps to get you there. You don't know how many hills and valleys you're going to have to take to get to that point, but you know where you want to go. And you just have enough of the path in front of you that you can see to keep moving forward. And that's what it's like in entrepreneurship. That's what it's like when you're making those transitions, is you get to know that there's a path there and that you can see where you want to go. And that fog will lift. Did you know, is like you start to drive into it, all of a sudden you can start to see more and more, and it starts to lift until you can actually get to that destination.
So when you're working with your clients, is it primarily people who are looking to transition out of a corporate role into entrepreneurship? Is there a wide variety? Do you mostly work with women?
Yeah, great question. So I work with service-based entrepreneurs. So those who are coaches, consultants, or serving in a way. So I've worked with massage therapists, chiropractors, functional medicine doctors. And so people who are wanting to serve others with what they do.
Beautiful.
And I started off just working with those, getting started. And now that we've grown, and I've also serviced a lot of larger organizations that, have hit that plateau in their business, and they want to really grow and figure out those next steps. So we have programs and coaching in place for people at the beginning phase and those, that have reached multiple six figures and still want to continue to grow, but are trying to work through those growing pains.
Right. Yeah. I think that's one of the hardest parts when you are growing. Maybe you're growing quickly and you don't have the right person in your corner to help you through that. So I highly believe in everybody should have a coach or multiple coaches for different things, right? Because you need those people who are experts to be able to guide you, mentor you, coach you, teach you. Just be there to be a listening ear and help you reframe some of the ways that you're looking at things. And I think that's where a lot of us sometimes miss out and stumble, is because we haven't set ourselves up to have those people in place already so they're there when we need them, right? We're kind of being retroactive instead of proactive and going, oh gosh, why did I not have that person? What do I need now? Who do I need? How do I get to them? How do I find them? Mm-hmm. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what you think people need to know if they're looking to make a leap and transform. Do you have top 3 tips? Just some, things that you've gone through or things that you've seen your clients stumble through that any of our audience could action no matter where they are in their journey?
Sure, absolutely. So the first thing is, as I said, you've got to get clarity on what it is you want to do, who you want to help, and who you want to serve. So that's the first pieces of the clarity bubble. So what do you want to do? Who do you want to serve? What does your program look like? And who can help you in getting that all figured out? Those are some of the key questions I would start asking. You have to understand who it is. Because if you put yourself out there in one way and then you're like changing every 3 months, people are like, what in the world do you do? And nobody understands. So then nobody trusts you. And you need to know what it is for you. What's going to be the thing that's going to drive you forward, that's going to excite you to be able to go out and serve those people every day? Mm-hmm. And what do you have the skill set at? So understanding those questions you need to be asking, understanding what do you want? Who do you want to serve? What is your goal? And what is the first steps you need in order to get there? Those are the beginning points, right? Getting those answers to those questions. And then you need to be considering, how do you get yourself out there and market in a way that feels authentic to who you are and what you want to do? And so there are things like, I always say, as soon as you put the entrepreneur hat on, it's like every social media out there knows that you are now trying to be an entrepreneur, and you get targeted with all these ads and all of these promotions and things saying, I've got the one thing to make you millions. I've got all you need to get you all the leads you need, and it's like this too good to be true marketing that you think, this is the one thing. And then you go try it and it doesn't work for you. And you try something else and it doesn't work. And the thing is, you need to understand what you should be doing in your business. Mm-hmm. Not everything you see is right for startups. And there are phases of business. And so you need to know, okay, when I'm in this, I call it the first phase 0, actually, the dreamer phase. That's when you're just like dreaming about starting a business. I actually had a call with someone recently who was like dreaming about starting a business, and they're going to all these summits and conferences and like doing all these things. They're like, I'm going to start a podcast and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I'm like, no. Know who you're serving yet. Do not do those things. You will waste so much time and effort. First, things first, right? We want to get you to phase one really quickly and out of the dreamer stage so that you can start making income. And, in the first phase, it starts with your network. 99% of businesses get their first clients from their network. So why are people so afraid to actually talk to people that they know?
Yeah.
Right? And so you don't have to be out there running ads and, starting podcasts or starting shows or doing things that you see a lot of influencers doing because you're not at that phase yet. That's not where they started.
Yeah.
And so go get on 100 other people's podcasts before you start your own. And that's what I think people need to understand is there is a method and a reason for why we do things at different times. And the marketers out there aren't necessarily trying to say, okay, do this first and that first and this next. And they just want you to do their one thing.
Exactly.
And if that one thing, if you don't have the 10 steps in place to actually make that one thing work, then it's not going to go well. And I want to help people avoid getting to that point. And so when we can put things into place and do things in a way that will make that transition go so much faster, then that's going to help them grow even faster.
I am so in tune with what you're saying because as a marketer, but also as an entrepreneur, I often have seen the shiny objects and gone, oh, do I need to try that tactic? I don't know as much about that. And that person seems to know a lot. So do I need to try that? But to your point, you have to really look inside and be authentic with who you are and what's going to be the best approach for you. And remember that the money that you're pouring into all these programs is money that you're taking out of your pocket that you could use in other ways to pay your salary, hire other people who might be instrumental to your business, or do other things that are really the backbone and the basis for you to be able to have a solid foundation.
Yeah. And understand once you do pick the one thing that you're going to do, focus on that one thing and be consistent at it, right?
Right.
So once you make the decision of what strategy you're going to use and what tactics you're going to use, stick to them and be consistent at them because that's the only way. So many people will start one thing and it's like, a month or two into it, they're like, that's not working. I'll go try something else. Or you've got to stick to it. I mean, as a podcaster, like even podcasting, most people do not make it past their first 8 episodes as a podcaster. And it's really when you get into like the 2-year, 3-year, 4-year mark that things really start to build and get that momentum. And so you have to decide, okay, what do I want to be committed to? How long am I going to give this opportunity the play that it needs and know what that play really is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is so true. And I think even with podcasting, I remember when I started this podcast, I wasn't consistent. It was just, it's something else I can do, right? But it wasn't something I was really pouring myself into. And now I'm 3 years in and I love it. And I've changed a lot of things I do, but I'm reaping the rewards. So it is that consistency. And it can be really hard when we see other people getting to other levels faster than us. When we look and when we compare ourselves to other people and what they're doing who might be in our same industry, I think sometimes that doubt and that fear creeps in.
Absolutely. That, comparisonitis, where you're like, well, they're doing it and it should work. And why isn't it working for me? And, all of that comparison that comes into play. And just know that that person is at a different place and it's okay. Use it as motivation, not that detrimental, feeling of, oh, I'm not good enough. That's not what it is. They've been working. Like, I love to take people who I would have at one point been that like jealousy of and thought, why can they have it or not me? Now I'm like, oh my goodness, you go, girl. I'm so excited for you because, I just know that you're setting the stage for what I want to do.
Yeah.
You're showing me that there is a way to do that. Right. So when we can look at things from a different perspective, then it doesn't hinder us in the way it used to and hold us back.
Well, and I'd love to hear 1 or 2 of testimonials and case studies of clients that you worked with. You can use their names or not use their names, but how you help them transform and have that aha moment, and then what their life looks like now after this transformation.
Yeah. I'll give a couple totally different examples.
Okay.
I started working with Angeline when she was about a year into her business and not making a ton of money, but just had a little bit of consistent income coming in. And we quickly took a look at her business model, what she was doing, and made some quick changes, understood how she could really hire a team to help support her. She didn't think she could bring anyone else in. She's an accountant. She's like, I got to do the bookkeeping. And I'm like, no, you don't. Like, we need to get you into higher level. She does tax strategy and she is amazing at it. And that's her high ticket. And so we needed to look at the balance of it. And how do we grow a business like that? And within 6 months, she had 10x'd her business. So being able to know what to do, how to do it, how to get the support in your team that makes the right impact can have a huge difference.
Wow.
And then I've also worked with people like Mare, who has been in business for like over 15 years and had just got into that rut where she was like right at the cusp of 6 figures and still was trying to break that. And always going through the roller coaster of entrepreneurship where you're like checking your bank account every day, saying, okay, do I have enough to pay my bills this month? What am I going to do? And, we were just having a conversation the other day and I've worked with her for just about 6 months at this point. And she's like, Tami, I have never had so much consistent income coming in. I don't have to go look at my bank account to wonder if I'm going to have enough, if I can afford to do the things that I want to do. I just know it's there now. And now I know that I'm doing the right things and why I'm doing them. I'm not wasting my time on all of these other things.
Yeah, those are both really beautiful examples. I love that one person was able to 10x just by making a few key hires. But having your assistants to know who they should hire, right? The types of people. So I think that's a place that a lot of us get stuck to. We hire because we think somebody has the skills, but maybe they don't. We hire maybe somebody who's a friend, or we hire too quickly. So knowing what that pace is and how they'll really be instrumental to your business is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And understanding your skill set versus what you can bring other people in for, and what's really going to help you scale. And I think that's a big difference. A lot of times people look for people like themselves or people that, aren't the unicorn, I call them. They don't really exist and they want them to do 50 million things in their business. And that person's not going to be good at all 50 of those things. And so it may not be just hiring one person. It might be hiring 2 or 3 people, but with different skill sets that are all part-time or on a contract basis.
Fantastic. And is there any one piece of advice beyond the frameworks and some of the things we've talked about that you think somebody should really adhere to if they're thinking about making a leap into entrepreneurship?
Get out of your own way.
Wow.
The biggest thing that holds you back is yourself. It is the fear. It is the clinging. For me, I was clinging to the security for a while, right? The security of the paycheck. We call it the corporate crack. That you are like, I'm not going to let go of it. And I actually had a session with, we call him the monk. He is a monk and he's a friend of mine. It was her husband and I had not met him. And I had been in a program with her and I had this like crazy dream and I wanted to get it interpreted. And she's like, you need to talk to my husband. And I'm like, okay. Found out later he had worked with people like Angelina Jolie and like some crazy important people. I was like, wow, I felt much more important after having this conversation with him when I found out who else he had worked with. But he did this whole exercise where he looked beyond my eyes, is what he called it. And he's like, you are clinging to the security, but everything I hear you say is you want freedom. And it was in that moment that I realized how I had these 2 conflicting desires. I had the desire for freedom in my life, freedom in my schedule, freedom to do what I wanted to do, but I was clinging to that security. And so I had to find that gap of how do I find the security in what I want and still have the freedom.
I love that.
And so I want you guys to think about that. What is it that you are clinging to so hard that you don't want to let go of? And what is the thing that you're saying you really want? And how do we bridge that gap to help you get there? If you can understand that, you can get that clarity, that is going to help you and drive you so much further and give you that big catapult that you need.
Fantastic. And you have a jumpstart kit, I believe, that can help people think about how to frame their business and go from employee-employer relationship to entrepreneur, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I want to share with you guys the Jumpstart Kit. You can get that at thejumpstartkit.com. And I know Anika will have that in the show notes as well. But this is the thing that is going to help you get it clear on how do you get a jumpstart on your clients? How do you get a jumpstart on knowing your numbers? How do you get a jumpstart on where do you need to be marketing when you're starting? How do you get a jumpstart on your strategy? All of these things, this is a key in making this transition. So whether you're just getting started or you've already made the leap, but it's not bringing you in consistent income, then you're missing something within this package that you guys will get in the Jumpstart Kit.
Wow. Fantastic. I love that, Tami. And is that the best place for people to also connect with you? Do you want them to follow you on socials, go to your LinkedIn or another website as well?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn at Tami Jaffe or follow us on Facebook, YouTube, any of those, and catch us. Let us know that you are there and connect with us.
Fantastic. And I know you gave us some really great advice, but I wanted to also see if you have another quote or mantra, family motto, or some other words that you live by.
Yeah, my word is inspired. And so I always like to say, get inspired by what you do and take the action to make it happen. When you can have that inspiration that you are so excited to be able to go to work every day and that work is your own business and you are excited about it and that drives you, you're going to do amazing things.
I love that. And I am very inspired for the day to think about this and think about everything that you've said and how, because I'm at that pinnacle where I'm like, I know my health is telling me to slow down and to reframe and to look at things. So I really appreciate this conversation at this moment in time, all of the advice you've given, because I know a lot of people are looking at how to make a change in their lives right now. And I think you've given us some really great stuff to think about. So Tami Jaffe, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Anika, for having me. It's been so fun.
Yeah. And thank you to the audience for watching or listening to this episode. I'll be back again in a few days with another amazing expert to share some insider tips on how you can grow and elevate your own life. Want more? Check out amplifywithanika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithanika.